Welcome back to another episode of Room for Horror. Tonight, we bring you two true paranormal stories from flights where the unseen seemed determined to make its presence known. Keep your seatbelts fastened and keep listening, because what you're about to hear may haunt your next journey. The Woman in 43A. There are certain routes in the skies that flight attendants quietly warn each other about. Paths where the air feels heavier, where the cabin lights flicker more often than maintenance logs can justify, and where passengers complain of things that can't be seen on the manifest. One of those routes was a red-eye flight from Taipei to Singapore, a trip that crews often rotated through reluctantly, whispering among themselves about the Woman in 43A. On this particular night, the aircraft pushed back from the gate just after midnight. The cabin was dim except for pockets of soft amber light glowing above passengers who were still settling in. The air smelled faintly of instant noodles and the lemon tea scent of freshly cleaned seats. Flight attendant May had done this route more times than she wanted to admit. Still, she was new enough in her career to volunteer for extra shifts, including the ones others quietly avoided. She believed most haunted flight stories were just exaggerations, exhaustion mixed with superstition. This flight, she told herself, would be no different. As the plane ascended through low clouds, the cabin darkened fully. Most passengers pulled their blankets over their shoulders, slipping into the drowsy quiet that red-eye flights naturally induced. May performed her first walkthrough, the soft click of her heels swallowed by the carpeting. Everything appeared normal until she reached row 43. The seat was occupied. A woman sat by the window, angled slightly away, her long black hair draped over her shoulders, hiding her face. Her hands rested neatly on her lap, unmoving, as if posed. Something about her posture seemed unusually still, almost statuesque, but May brushed it off as a deep sleeper. She noted the row and continued on. Halfway through the cabin, she paused. Something tugged at her memory. Row 43 wasn't supposed to have passengers tonight. She had glanced at the seating chart during boarding. That row had been empty. She turned around and walked back. Row 40, row 41, row 42. But when she reached row 43 again, the seat by the window was empty. The blanket lay untouched, the seatbelt unbuckled, lying loosely across the cushion exactly as it had been during boarding, as if no one had sat there at all. May inhaled slowly and let the breath out through her nose. Fatigue. That's all it was. She moved on. Later in the flight, turbulence shook the plane lightly, just enough to trigger the seatbelt sign. The captain's calm voice echoed through the speakers, and the cabin lights flickered twice before stabilizing. May resumed another walkthrough, checking that everyone was properly strapped in. At row 43, the woman was back. Not sleeping this time. Her body faced forward, but her head was turned toward the aisle at an unnatural angle, chin slightly down, as if she were observing May from beneath the curtain of her hair. Even in the low light, her skin looked drained of color. May's breath caught. Something instinctive inside her told her not to look directly into the woman's face, some primal fear that looking too closely would make something happen. She moved on, her steps quickening, heart pumping faster than turbulence could justify. When she returned to the galley, she pulled out the passenger manifest on her tablet. The seats in row 43 were all marked empty. No names, no tickets, no special requests, no woman. May didn't say anything to the other attendants. She didn't want to give voice to what she had seen. Superstition said that once spoken aloud, such things recognized you. Hours later, the cabin fell into a silence that only high-altitude night flights can produce. An unnatural calm, as though the aircraft existed in its own sealed dimension while cutting through the darkness. The only sound was the faint hum of the engines, and the occasional shifting of a sleeping passenger. May stepped out again to collect trash and check the aisles. Midway down the aircraft, she noticed something strange. Passengers near row 43 were subtly turning in their sleep, as if uncomfortable, muttering faintly. A man rubbed his arms even though the cabin wasn't cold. A woman sat up briefly, glancing toward the back before quickly lying down again, pulling her blanket to her chin. When May approached the row, she froze. The woman in 43A now pressed her forehead against the window, her silhouette unmoving. The reflection of her shape warbled slightly against the glass, distorted by the darkness beyond. The problem wasn't that she was there. It was that her breath was fogging the window. Slow, steady, deliberate clouds forming and dissolving. May had seen enough passengers to know what human breathing looked like. This was slower, drawn out, as if the woman only performed the motion out of imitation or habit left over from a life now gone. May felt chilled all the way to her fingertips. She leaned forward slightly, just enough to confirm whether the passenger was simply unwell. That's when the woman's hand rose. Not in a natural motion, but abruptly, like a puppet pulled by a string. Her palm spread against the window, fingers long and unnaturally thin. Her nails tapped once, twice, 3 times against the plastic paneling beside the glass. A signal, a request, a warning. May stepped back. As she did, the cabin lights above her flickered again, washing the aisle in brief pulses of cold, sterile brightness. When the lights steadied, the seat was empty. This time, May's legs trembled. She clutched the back of a chair for balance and forced herself to breathe. Whatever this was, it wasn't a hallucination. The woman had left something behind, a faint physical outline on the window where her breath had been, a smear, a partial handprint, something real. When she returned to the galley, she finally spoke. The other 2 attendants fell silent immediately. Their expressions told her everything. They had seen her too. One of them, Hannah, broke the silence first. Her face was pale, her lips pressed thin. "She always appears when the seat is empty," Hannah whispered. "Always that same seat, same route, same time of night." "Who is she?" May asked, her voice strained. Hannah hesitated. "Some say she was a passenger years ago, traveling home after visiting her sick mother." Her fingers twisted together, knuckles whitening. "She passed away mid-flight, quietly. No one realized until after landing." May swallowed hard. "And the seat was 43A?" Hannah nodded. "They say she wanders the aisle looking for something she never got to say, or someone she never got to see again. No one really knows." The turbulence eased, but the air remained unnervingly cold around them, almost as if someone unseen had slipped into the galley. Later, during landing preparations, May hesitated before checking the back rows again. The cabin was brighter now, lit in a soft blue glow meant to gently wake passengers. Light made everything feel safer, less haunted. But as she walked past 43A, she noticed the seatbelt was fastened. Tight, clipped neatly around an empty seat. The crew had purposely left the seatbelt unfastened before takeoff, a standard procedure when a seat wasn't occupied. Someone had buckled it, not with the clumsy tug of a passenger in a hurry, but with deliberate precision, aligned perfectly, metal centered, fabric smoothed flat. May's steps never felt longer or heavier than the final walk back to the galley. She didn't tell the others about the seatbelt. Some things, she learned, were better left unspoken. As the plane touched down in Singapore, sunlight leaked into the cabin, chasing away the remnants of night. Passengers stirred awake, unaware of anything unusual. As they disembarked, Row 43 looked like any other seat, empty, clean, unremarkable. But May paused before stepping off the plane. The window beside 43A still held the faintest trace of a handprint, and beneath the seat, tucked neatly as if placed with care, was a boarding pass. Old, yellowed around the edges, the ink faded. The name was almost unreadable. The seat, 43A, clear enough, and the date etched faintly on the card told her it had been more than 9 years since it was first issued. Yet here it was, in her hands, impossibly present, as if someone or something had preserved it all this time, waiting to be found. The shadow in the cargo hold. There are parts of an airplane passengers never see. Narrow corridors behind galley walls, damp storage compartments beneath the floor, and crew rest areas tucked deep into the fuselage like hidden caves. But the most avoided space, by both crew and ground staff, is the cargo hold. Not because of turbulence, not because of claustrophobia, but because, according to those who have worked long enough in aviation, some cargo holds have passengers of their own. This story comes from a flight that departed from Johannesburg, headed for Doha on a long night journey. It was a full flight, and among the checked baggage was a cargo crate containing a deceased passenger being transported home. Transporting a body wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the feeling the cargo team reported, a brief but sharp drop in temperature the moment the crate was loaded. A ground staff member later claimed he saw movement in the shadows behind the boxes, movement that didn't belong to any of his co-workers. But the aircraft had already closed its doors by then. Inside the cabin, flight attendant Rafik started his shift without knowing anything about the unusual cargo. He walked the aisles with easy confidence. He had flown this route more than 100 times. To him, the dark shape of Africa shrinking beneath the plane felt almost comforting, familiar even. 2 hours into the flight, the plane crossed into a smooth pocket of stable air. The cabin lights dimmed to a nighttime setting, bathing the interior in cool blue. The passengers slept, the crew relaxed, and deep beneath the floor, the temperature in the cargo hold began to fall. Rafik noticed the first strange occurrence when he entered the galley and felt a cold draft. Unnatural, considering the heating system kept that area warm. The chill crept across the floor like invisible fog, curling around his ankles. He checked the vent. Nothing seemed wrong. But when he looked through the small service grate that led to the mechanical bay below, he caught a glimpse of something he couldn't explain. A shifting shadow, moving against the direction of the plane's motion. At first he thought it was a trick of the dim lighting. Then it moved again, slowly, deliberately. He stepped away, heart pounding. Rafik resumed his duties, but something changed in the cabin atmosphere. A heavy stillness settled in, as if the air had thickened. Passengers tossed and turned in their sleep. A baby whimpered without waking. A man near the back clutched his blanket tightly, his brow furrowing in unconscious distress. Then the knocking began. Soft, rhythmic tapping from somewhere below. At first, Rafik assumed it was mechanical noise. Planes creak and shift during long flights. Metal expands and contracts. It could have been anything. But the sound grew clearer, sharper, like knuckles, knocking from beneath the floor. 3 knocks at a time. A pause, then again. Rafik froze, listening. He crouched low, placing his ear near the base of the galley wall. The knocking came again, this time closer, almost directly beneath him. He stood up quickly, backing away. His pulse hammered in his ears. Something was wrong, very wrong, but he needed another crew member to confirm it. He found his colleague, Aisha, who was preparing hot towels for the middle aisles. She noticed his pale expression immediately. He didn't speak. He simply motioned for her to follow. When she lowered her ear near the same spot, the knocks were waiting for her. 3 taps, evenly spaced, demanding attention. Aisha recoiled instantly. "That's not the plane," she whispered, voice trembling. "That's someone down there." They alerted the cabin manager, who frowned and checked the structural panel himself. When the knocks occurred again, his expression changed, no longer skeptical, but deeply alarmed. He went to the flight deck to inform the pilots. The return message was firm. "There's no access from inside the aircraft to the cargo hold. No one can be down there. Ignore it. Continue your duties." The crew obeyed, but the knocking continued. Passengers began waking up one by one. A woman near the galley rubbed her arms, whispering to herself that she felt someone walking past her, even though no one was there. A teenage boy reported seeing something move under the seats, like a shadow crawling. The cabin temperature dipped slightly, unusual for that stage of flight. The air felt heavy and damp, carrying a faint metallic scent, like old keys soaked in cold water. Rafik tried to focus on his tasks, but every few minutes the knocks echoed again. 3 taps. Always 3. Hours later, when the plane reached cruising altitude over remote terrain and stretches of coastline, the knocking abruptly stopped. But the silence that followed was worse. It wasn't silence at all. It was breathing. Slow, rasping inhalations that seeped through the ventilation grates. Passengers shifted uneasily, as if sensing something unseen drifting along the aisle. A collective tension filled the air, like prey recognizing a predator in the dark. Rafik felt watched, not from the aisles, but from beneath the floor. During the mid-flight break, he and Aisha retreated to the dimly lit crew rest area. But rest was impossible. The breathing seemed to come from the walls there too, as though something had crawled upward through the aircraft's interior. Then came the footsteps. Clear, heavy steps echoing in the narrow hallway outside the crew rest compartment. Slow, dragging, as if the weight of the movement didn't belong to someone fully alive. Rafik and Aisha pressed themselves against the curtain separating the rest area from the hall. Neither dared to peek out, but they could feel the presence pass. The air thickened, carrying with it the cold smell of earth, grave soil, the smell of something buried. When the footsteps faded, Rafik finally peeked into the hallway. It was empty, but the floor bore faint streaks of moisture, like wet footprints that evaporated before he could fully register them. Rafik and Aisha returned to their duties with dread sinking into their bones. Passengers seemed restless. A woman whispered that she dreamed someone was sitting on her chest. A man swore he saw a figure crouching near the lavatory door. At one point, a child in the window seat pointed silently toward the aisle, his eyes wide, following something neither parent nor crew could see. A few minutes later, the captain called through the interphone again. His voice was unusually firm, though still calm and procedural. He instructed the crew to secure the aft galley, explaining that they were going to run a quick systems check on the cargo hold. It wasn't an emergency call, but it was enough to make the crew's stomachs tighten. Securing the galley was standard protocol whenever the cockpit anticipated sudden maneuvers, turbulence, a possible descent, or any unexpected aircraft behavior. And the aft galley sat directly above part of the cargo area where the noises had been reported. The crew complied, locking carts, latching compartments, and taking their jump seats as the hum of the aircraft deepened around them. But the aft galley became colder than anywhere else on the plane, as though something had settled there. When Aisha opened a storage compartment to check supplies, she screamed. Inside, resting on top of stacked meal trays, was a small strip of paper. Moist, crumpled, a baggage tag. The name had smeared away, but the words underneath were still readable. Human remains. Handle with care. The crew now understood. Whatever was in the cargo hold was no longer in the cargo hold. Hours later, as the flight began its descent into Doha, the cabin lights slowly brightened. The eerie sensations weakened. The breathing in the vents faded. The cold patches in the aisles dissolved. Passengers woke up, unaware of what had haunted the cabin that night. The plane touched down smoothly. After landing, when cargo crew opened the hold, confusion spread across their faces. The crate containing the deceased was still intact, but the body inside had shifted position. Drastically. It lay pressed against the inside wall of the crate, as if trying to push its way out. The expression, once neutral, now appeared contorted in anguish, mouth open wide, hands pressed firmly against the lid, as if knocking, trying to be heard. The crew was questioned, but kept their answers vague. Aviation is a world full of rules, and some truths never make it into official reports. But among flight attendants, the story spread quietly. They say that sometimes, when a body is transported at night, its spirit doesn't understand what's happening. It wakes confused, disoriented, searching for warmth or company, and sometimes it decides it prefers not to travel alone. On that flight from Johannesburg to Doha, something had crawled up from the cargo hold. Not malevolent, just lost, seeking attention, seeking someone to hear its knocking. And Rafik still hears it sometimes when he tries to sleep. 3 taps. Echoing from beneath the floorboards of his memory. Thank you for joining us tonight on Room for Horror. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment if these stories gave you chills. And remember, on a plane, sometimes the most terrifying passengers are the ones you never see.